Serena Calloway stood in the marble foyer of the Calloway mansion, heart hammering in her chest. The grandeur around her did nothing to soothe her nerves. Ornate pillars, gilded mirrors, and marble floors spoke of her father's unimaginable wealth and his unyielding control. Charles Calloway loomed by the sweeping staircase, his gray eyes reflecting the ruthless ambition that had made him one of the city's most powerful moguls. "We've arranged the date," he declared, voice cool. "You will marry Ryan Sterling next month." Serena stiffened. She wanted to protest that this wasn't an age of arranged marriages, that she was a person with her own dreams and desires. Instead, she swallowed her anger, knowing how easily her father could cut off her resources. She forced herself to speak calmly. "I refuse." Charles arched an eyebrow, his tone condescending. "So you'd rather forfeit your inheritance? Are you prepared to live in poverty just to make a point?" She hated the way her father's words seethed with threats. "I'm not signing my future away to a man I barely know." His lips curved in a thin smile. "Then is there someone else?" A reckless impulse seized Serena. "Yes, I'm already engaged to someone I love." The lie emerged before she could stop it. Charles's eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Who is he?" A prickly sweat covered her palms. She hadn't thought that far ahead. "You'll meet him soon," she murmured, praying her father wouldn't press further. He studied her for a moment. Then he nodded curtly. "Fine. You have 48 hours to present this mysterious fiancé. If you fail, you marry Ryan." Her stomach dropped. 48 hours to find a man who would agree to a fake engagement? Impossible. Yet the determined set of her jaw hid her panic. "Consider it done." As she turned to leave, Charles's tone hardened. "Mark my words, Serena. If this fiancé is a sham, you will regret defying me." She hurried out of the foyer, heart pounding. For all her bravado, she felt like a child walking a tightrope above a pit. She hated Ryan Sterling, an arrogant businessman who treated her as a mere merger asset. But the clock was ticking, and she needed an immediate plan. Slipping into her sleek car, Serena dialed the one person she could trust. "Ava," she said, voice trembling, "I need a favor. Something crazy." Ava Monroe sat across from Serena at the Penthouse Lounge, an upscale bar situated on the 50th floor of a towering high-rise. The city's glittering skyline spread out beneath them, lights winking like scattered stars. "This is insane," Ava exclaimed, leaning closer so their conversation remained private amid the lounge's low hum of background music. "You told your father you're already engaged? Who on earth are you going to find at this hour?" Serena rubbed her temples. "He gave me 48 hours. If I don't produce a fiancé, I'm doomed to marry Ryan Sterling. I'd rather jump off this building." Ava sighed, stirring her cocktail. "You know your father won't just accept any random man. He'll dig into his background, ask questions." Serena nodded. "I need someone who isn't tied to the elite circles Dad controls. Someone with no obvious connection to me." They scanned the room, eyes darting past trust fund heirs, socialites, and well-groomed financiers. Then, by the bar, they noticed a tall, lean bartender with tousled dark hair. His features were sharp, and his posture radiated a quiet confidence. There was something in the set of his jaw that spoke of resilience, of having weathered storms. Maybe a bartender was too ordinary for her father's taste, but that was exactly the point. Ava's eyes sparkled. "Him. He looks capable." Serena looked uncertain. "You really think this could work?" Ava shrugged. "At this point, it's worth a shot." They approached the bar as the lounge began winding down. The bartender, reading the end of his shift, stacked glasses with deft efficiency. Serena cleared her throat. "Excuse me, could we talk to you after you're done?" He glanced up, dark eyes flicking between them. "Sure." His voice was low, steady. "Give me 10 minutes." They retreated to a secluded booth. Precisely 10 minutes later, he slid in across from them, removing his apron. "All right, I'm off the clock." "What's up?" Serena tried to sound calm. "I'm Serena, and this is Ava." She took a breath. "I have a proposition. It might sound bizarre, but I'll pay handsomely." He studied her face, then nodded slowly. "I'm listening." I need someone to pretend to be my fiancé for a month, she blurted. I'll pay $500,000. The bartender's eyes narrowed. 500 grand? That's not pocket change. Who are you exactly? Ava offered a wry grin. She's Serena Calloway. And her father, Charles Calloway, wants her to marry someone she hates. The bartender's brows lifted. Charles Calloway, the billionaire? Serena shrugged. Yes. The question is, are you interested in helping me out? I need someone who can act the part and survive my father's scrutiny. He glanced at the bar's neon reflection on the polished table. Why me? Because you're a complete outsider to his world, Serena answered honestly. No ties, no associations that lead back to him. Silence stretched. The bartender weighed her words, his gaze locked on her. Then he extended his hand. Name's Jaden Cole. And I could use the money. Relief flooded Serena. Really? You'll do it? Under one condition, Jaden said. We keep it business. No emotional entanglements, no real intimacy. If I walk away after a month, we both part with no strings. Serena nodded, ignoring the slight tension that flickered inside her at his emphasis on no intimacy. Done. We'll iron out the details tomorrow. They exchanged numbers. As Jaden stood, pulling on a worn leather jacket, he turned back to Serena. Hope you know what you're getting into. She managed a faint smile. Likewise. By noon the next day, Serena and Jaden met in a luxurious hotel suite rented for privacy. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, glittering under the midday sun. Ava had laid out neatly pressed suits for Jaden to try on. We have to refine your image a bit, she said, glancing at his casual attire. We need you to pass for someone with enough sophistication to impress Charles Calloway. Jaden smirked. So you're giving me a makeover? Exactly, Ava confirmed. Meanwhile, Serena spread out a small stack of papers on the glass coffee table. I drew up a contract. It's pretty straightforward. Public appearances, social events, interviews if needed. Half your payment up front, half when the month ends. Jaden scanned the contract without much expression. This is well thought out. Serena averted her gaze. I've had to be prepared for my father's manipulations. He signed his name in bold strokes. As he handed back the pen, their fingers briefly touched, sending an unexpected jolt through Serena's arm. She withdrew quickly, reminding herself this was purely transactional. Clearing her throat, she began. So, we need a backstory. How we met, why we fell in love, all that. My father will interrogate you. Fine, Jaden said. We can say we met at a gallery opening. You're an art enthusiast, right? Serena blinked. Yeah, I do attend gallery events sometimes. That could work. Ava chimed in. We'll have to memorize key dates, like when you first said, I love you, or introduced him to friends. Jaden's tone was dry. Sounds romantic. Despite his sarcasm, something in his gaze suggested deeper currents. Serena wondered what secrets lay beneath his calm exterior. The intensity of his eyes hinted at experiences he wasn't ready to share. She shoved the thought aside. We should also practice how you behave around me in public, little touches, endearments, all that. Jaden nodded tersely. I'll do what it takes to make this convincing. That day was a whirlwind of rehearsing anecdotes and planning their love story. Yet Serena couldn't shake the sense that Jaden was hiding a darker past. And she dreaded the moment Charles inevitably dug for it. The suite's living area resembled a small theater set. Ava played the part of Charles Calloway, hurling pointed questions at Jaden while Serena observed. How did you propose to Serena? Ava demanded. Jaden gave an impish smile. I took her to a rooftop overlooking the city at dusk. She's always loved panoramic views. I lit a row of candles, got down on one knee, and told her she makes me want to be a better man. Serena's cheeks warmed. It was startling how easily Jaden wove a story that sounded tender, almost plausible. Ava clapped. Believable. Even sweet. Jaden's expression turned guarded as he returned to the contract lying on the table. We agreed on no real relationship, right? Serena forced a laugh. Exactly. We're faking this for my father's sake and to save me from marrying Ryan. Nothing more. His dark eyes lingered on her a moment. Good. Just wanted to confirm. Ava broke the sudden tension. We should finalize your wardrobe for tomorrow's big reveal. Your father wants to meet Jaden at that charity banquet. So let's pick the perfect suit. Serena exhaled, relieved to refocus on logistics. Yeah, let's do that. Inwardly, though, she felt a twinge of discomfort at their emphasis on no real relationship. Because for all Jaden's aloofness, there was something about him that made her feel oddly alive. A dazzling chandelier hung from the ceiling of the opulent ballroom hosting a high society charity event. Dressed in a sleek, cobalt gown, Serena stood at Jaden's side, trying to appear composed as whispers and curious glances followed them. Ryan Sterling, tall and impeccably dressed, approached with an arrogant smirk. Serena, you're looking stunning. He surveyed Jaden dismissively. And you are? Jaden Cole, he answered evenly. Serena's fiancé. Ryan's smirk vanished. Fiancé? Since when? Jaden offered a cool smile. For a while now. It's just been private. Ryan's jaw clenched, but he masked his irritation with a forced laugh. Interesting. You'll have to tell Charles all about your future plans. Serena felt her pulse spike. They found Charles Calloway near the stage, surrounded by wealthy donors. When he spotted them, his gaze locked on Jaden like a hawk. So, Charles said, voice etched with skepticism, this is the fiancé you mentioned. Jaden met the older man's stare. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Mr. Calloway. Charles glanced at Serena, then back at Jaden. Where do you work, Cole? Jaden responded calmly, I'm an entrepreneur, sir. I've ventured into smaller investments, but I'm looking to expand. Ryan, hovering nearby, snorted softly. Really? Never heard of you. Charles demanded, where did you meet my daughter? At an art gallery, Jaden answered, no hesitation. We connected over a discussion about impressionist paintings. The conversation never ended. Serena forced herself to smile, stepping in. Father, Ryan, we'd love to answer more questions, but if you'll excuse us, we have other guests to greet. Charles gave her a measured look. We'll continue this later. She slipped her arm through Jaden's, leading him away. Her chest felt tight from the tension, but she forced a bright expression for the onlooking crowd. They made polite small talk with donors, occasionally exchanging glances of silent relief at having survived the initial scrutiny. Eventually, they ended up on the balcony for fresh air. Serena leaned on the railing, inhaling deeply. That went better than I feared. Jaden stood beside her, city lights reflecting in his gaze. He's suspicious. But at least he didn't tear us apart right there. She turned her head. Thanks for handling his questions. Jaden gave a small shrug. I've dealt with tough audiences. She studied him. Have you? You speak like someone with more experience than a typical bartender. He offered a wry smile. Let's just say I've lived many lives. Over the next week, Serena and Jaden attended a whirlwind of events, each time performing their roles as a devoted couple. They posed for photos, engaged in light PDA, and answered countless questions about wedding dates and future plans. Tabloids began publishing pictures of them with headlines like, Mystery Fiancé Steals Heiress's Heart. One evening, after a high-profile fundraiser, they found themselves in the back of Serena's limousine. She kicked off her heels, wiggling her toes with relief. I never realized how exhausting these charades could be. Jaden loosened his tie. Acting all night, saying the right lines, smiling at every rumor, it's a lot. She sighed. I can't believe you handle it so well. I would have thought you'd slip up by now, but you seem almost natural at it. He looked at her thoughtfully. People underestimate how much you can learn just by observing. Tending bar taught me how to read people's body language, how to mirror their tone. Maybe that helps. She considered his words. You're more perceptive than most I know in my father's circle. They're all about flaunting power, but you're different. He blinked as though unaccustomed to compliments. I appreciate that. In that enclosed space, their gazes locked. Serena felt a disconcerting flutter in her stomach. She looked away, reminding herself this was a transaction. They weren't meant to form real attachments. But the faint warmth that lingered even after she stepped out of the limo suggested her resolve might be cracking. Ryan Sterling wasn't a man who accepted defeat easily. Seated in his sleek penthouse office, he pored over a dossier compiled by a private investigator. He hissed under his breath, reading the minimal information on Jaden Cole. No known ties to prominent families, patchy employment history, no social media presence. Suspicious, Ryan muttered. The investigator nodded. We suspect he's hiding something. Possibly a criminal record or a past scandal. Ryan's eyes glowed with malice. Find out. I'll pay whatever it takes. If he has skeletons, I want them laid bare. The investigator leaned forward. I've heard rumors about a sealed court case involving a J. Cole from 2 years ago. Accessing it will be expensive and probably illegal. Ryan waved dismissively. Do it. That'll be pocket change for me. He pictured Serena laughing with Jaden, defying her father and humiliating him. The memory soured his mood. She was supposed to be his, to expand the Sterling empire by merging with the Callaways. Now, this nobody had swooped in. Ryan slammed the dossier shut. You won't get away with this, Cole, he growled to the empty room. I'll see to it that your name is dragged through the mud. At an exclusive fashion show, Serena and Jaden mingled with designers and celebrities. Paparazzi cameras flashed, capturing their every move. After 2 hours, Serena needed to breathe, so she tugged Jaden backstage. Where are you going? He asked, following her past racks of elegant gowns and scurrying assistants. She pressed a hand to her chest. Just need a minute. All these cameras. He nodded, stepping into a quiet corner with her. Take a breath. She exhaled slowly, leaning against a wall covered in pinned sketches. Sometimes it feels claustrophobic. Jaden's gaze lingered on her. You handle it well. She offered a strained smile. I grew up in this world, but it doesn't mean I like it. Suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. Ryan Sterling emerged from behind a curtain, eyes flicking between them. Escaping the spotlight, are we? Serena's frustration flared. Ryan, what do you want? He sneered. Just checking on the happy couple. Everyone's talking about your fiancé, you know. Interesting how he popped up out of nowhere. Jaden's jaw tensed. Anything else you'd like to say? Ryan strode closer. Yes. I'd be careful if I were you, Cole. The truth tends to surface. Before Serena could retaliate, a staffer called Ryan's name, dragging him away. The moment crackled with tension. Jaden turned back to her, anger sparking in his eyes. She reached out, placing a hand on his arm. Ignore him. He's just trying to rattle you. Jaden's gaze softened at her touch, and the air between them felt charged. For a moment, she wondered if they would cross the line they'd promised not to. His breath warmed her cheek, and she realized how close they stood, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his dark irises. Just as her heart thundered in anticipation, Jaden blinked, stepping back. We should get back to the show. Right, Serena managed, pulse racing. She fought the ache of disappointment that she refused to name. Late that night, Serena returned to her penthouse apartment. An envelope lay on the doormat, labeled with no return address. Inside were news clippings about a massive financial scandal from 2 years prior. A name jumped out at her, Jaden C. Her heart pounded as she scanned headlines hinting at fraud allegations, lost fortunes, and a suspect who vanished. A scribbled note read, "You don't know who you're dealing with." Shaken, Serena called Ava. Someone sent me evidence linking Jaden to a fraud scandal. Or at least someone named Jaden C. Ava's voice crackled with concern over the phone. Could be a hoax. You think Ryan or your father sent it? Serena bit her lip. It could be Ryan's doing. But what if it's real? Ava hesitated. You need to confront Jaden. If he's lying about his past, you deserve the truth. Serena stared at the swirling city lights outside her window. I'm not sure how to ask without breaking our fragile trust. But I can't ignore this. She tucked the clippings away, her mind racing with possibilities. If Jaden truly was a criminal, was she protecting a con man? Or was this just more manipulation by Ryan? By morning, tabloids were aflame with rumors. "Heiress engaged to a fraud," screamed one headline. Paparazzi camped outside the Calloway mansion, hounding Serena for comments. Inside the mansion's sprawling foyer, Charles confronted her, waving a tabloid angrily. "Explain this, Serena. Who is Jaden Cole?" She swallowed hard. "He's my fiancé, and I trust him." Her father's sneer was cutting. "According to these papers, he might be a criminal. Are you truly that naive?" She refused to show weakness. "Those could be lies, spread by Ryan. You know he'll do anything to sabotage me." Charles glared. "If Jaden's innocent, he'd better prove it. Otherwise, you'll end this farce and do as I say." Serena set her jaw. "No, I won't be bullied into marrying Ryan." She turned and found Jaden standing at the entrance, tension etched on his face. He looked ready for battle. "I heard the headlines," he said quietly. "I need you to trust me a little longer." Emotions warred within her, but she nodded. "All right." Together, they exited through a side door to avoid the frenzied press. Her father's furious gaze followed them, a silent promise that he would not let this rest. Seeking refuge from the relentless paparazzi, Serena and Jaden drove to a modest inn on the outskirts of the city. The inn had cozy rooms with rustic decor, a stark contrast to the opulence she was used to. Exhausted, they sank onto the single bed, separated by a pillow barrier they jokingly placed to keep things professional. Rain drummed lightly against the window as night deepened. Serena rubbed her temples. "My father's convinced you're a criminal. The tabloids are painting me as a gullible heiress." Jaden leaned back, watching her with quiet empathy. "I'm sorry you're caught in the crossfire." She studied him. "You don't seem scared." "Why?" He sighed, eyes distant. "Because I've already lost everything once. After that, threats lose their sting." She sensed the pain behind his words, recalling the anonymous tip about a huge fraud scandal. "What happened?" His jaw tightened. "I had a company. I was on track to success, but a partner betrayed me, framing me for embezzlement. The investigations nearly destroyed my reputation. Even though I wasn't convicted, I was done in that world." Her heart clenched with sympathy. "I'm sorry." He gave a resigned nod. "Life goes on. I ended up bartending, trying to pay off debts. This arrangement with you seemed like a chance to rebuild." Emotion swelled within her. "I believe you." Relief flickered in his gaze. "Thank you." They lapsed into silence, the dim lamplight casting shadows on the worn carpet. In that quiet, an unexpected tenderness grew. Serena found her hand creeping closer to his, a comforting gesture she couldn't entirely explain. Their fingers brushed, and she felt a tug of longing that she barely understood. But eventually, they parted, and she fell asleep thinking of the raw vulnerability she'd glimpsed beneath Jaden's tough exterior. A few days later, after another dizzying round of events and press ambushes, they returned to Serena's penthouse late in the evening. Jaden had insisted on walking her to her door, mindful of prowling photographers. The lobby was silent under bright lights. Serena fished out her key, unlocking the door. Tension from the day lingered in the air. She turned to Jaden, voice low. "Thanks for everything. I know this has been harder than we expected." He nodded, fatigue shadowing his features. "We'll get through it." She exhaled, stepping closer. "You've done so much. Are you sure this is worth the money?" He paused. "It's not just the money anymore. I'm tired of being labeled a fraud. If this helps me prove otherwise, maybe it's a start." Her eyes searched his. "I'm sorry it's so complicated. Sometimes I wish we'd never made this deal." His brow furrowed. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because it's confusing. You feel real." In that moment, everything else fell away. Jaden's hand lifted to her face, brushing aside a stray lock of hair. Her heart pounded wildly. She leaned forward instinctively, and his lips met hers in a tentative, soft kiss. Time seemed to freeze. It was gentle, a brief caress that spoke of mutual uncertainty and hope. Then they broke apart, both breathing unsteadily. He stepped back, eyes troubled. "Serena, this wasn't in the contract." She managed a tremulous smile. "No, it wasn't. He ran a hand through his hair. We should be careful. Her chest felt tight, but she nodded. Right. Careful. As he turned to leave, she closed the door, leaning against it with a swirl of emotions that refused to settle. A single thought resonated. They had just crossed a line, and there was no going back. Ryan Sterling finally got the information he sought. The investigators slid a thick file across his expensive mahogany desk. It's all there, the man said. Jaden Cole was once a rising entrepreneur who lost everything after a fraud investigation. No formal conviction, but the scandal was huge. Ryan's eyes gleamed. This is perfect. And it'll be even more damaging if we frame it as an ongoing con. We'll say he's using Serena for her fortune. Grinning, he phoned a contact at a leading tabloid, leaking the story. Within hours, a media storm erupted. Headlines shouted, "Billionaire heiress engaged to disgraced CEO," and "Is Jaden Cole scamming Serena Callaway?" At a charity luncheon, Ryan ambushed them with reporters. Cameras flashed as he brandished documents. "Serena, your fiancé's a known fraud. How can you stand by him?" Serena bristled. He was never convicted. "Why are you doing this, Ryan?" Ryan's smirk was triumphant. "Because the public deserves the truth." Jaden stepped forward. "These allegations were orchestrated by my ex-partner to ruin me. I'll prove my innocence." The press clamored, bombarding them with questions. Serena grabbed Jaden's arm and pushed through the crowd. In a quieter hallway, she glared at Ryan, tears of anger threatening. "You're vile." Ryan shrugged with faux sympathy. "I'm only protecting you." She almost spat back a retort, but Jaden pulled her away, face grim. "Don't sink to his level." They fled, hearts pounding, but Serena's mind reeled. Jaden's hidden past was splashed across every news outlet. How could they salvage his name and this facade of an engagement? That evening, Charles summoned Serena to his private study. She entered warily, noticing the tension in the air. He stood by a tall window overlooking the estate, posture rigid. "You've seen the headlines," he began, not bothering with pleasantries. "Your fiancé is toxic. And this engagement." Serena steeled herself. "He's not toxic. He was framed." Charles turned, eyes flashing. "I don't care about the nuances. This scandal reflects on me. I will not have the Callaway name dragged through the mud." She clenched her fists. "Why do you always care more about your empire than me?" His jaw tightened. "Because you're part of this empire, whether you like it or not. I gave you everything. And you repay me by gallivanting around with a charlatan." She shook her head. "You don't understand. Jaden." Charles cut her off. "Enough. Either you leave him, or I'll destroy him. I have the resources to ensure he never works again." Cold horror gripped Serena's stomach. "You do that to him?" His eyes were unyielding. "Try me." After a strained moment, she spun on her heel and left the study, refusing to let her father see her tremble. Fear spiked her pulse. She had to warn Jaden that the final battle was near. Despite Serena's warnings, Charles moved swiftly. Rumors circulated that he was pressuring influential figures to blacklist Jaden. Business contacts refused to meet with him. Even the bar he once worked at avoided rehiring him, fearing Callaway's wrath. Late one night, Serena rushed to Jaden's temporary apartment. She found him packing a duffel bag, face grim. "What's going on?" He wouldn't look at her. "Your father's threatened to ruin me if we stay together. I lost my last few leads for a stable job. He's shutting every door in my face." Her heart clenched. "Don't let him bully you. We can fight back." Jaden exhaled shakily. "Serena, I've been fighting battles alone for years. I can't let you lose everything on my account." Tears blurred her vision. "But what about us?" He froze. "Us." His tone held a desperate undertone. She swallowed thickly. "We can't deny there's something here beyond the contract." Pain flickered across his features. He reached out, brushing away her tears. "I feel it too, but if staying means destroying you." "Destroying me? My father doesn't own my life." His eyes wavered. "I can't watch you get hurt." "I'm sorry." He shouldered the bag, stepping past her. She grabbed his arm, voice trembling. "Don't go." He kissed her forehead, whispering, "I have no choice," before slipping into the night. The echo of the closing door left Serena feeling hollow, while outside, paparazzi bulbs flashed like relentless lightning. In the aftermath of Jaden's departure, tabloids crowed about the fake engagement fiasco. Ryan gloated publicly, calling Serena a naive heiress who got swindled. Charles looked smug, certain his daughter would now capitulate. But anger and heartbreak fueled her resolve. She hired her own investigator, Ms. Laurent, instructing her to dig up any record that could exonerate Jaden. Buried in court archives, Ms. Laurent found documents indicating that Jaden's ex-partner had forged signatures and falsified ledgers to frame him for embezzlement. Even more startling, there were suspicious payments from C. Callaway Holdings to that same ex-partner. Serena's blood ran cold. Could her father have orchestrated Jaden's ruin from the start? She recalled how Charles always crushed emerging competition. Jaden's past business might have threatened his domain. Ms. Laurent set down the files. "This is damning evidence. If you go public, you'll drag your father into scandal." Serena's jaw tightened. "So be it. I won't let him destroy Jaden's life just to protect his empire." She arranged a massive press conference, inviting major networks and influential reporters. If Charles tried to silence her, he'd fail in front of the world. On the night of the press conference, Serena stood in a grand ballroom thronged with cameras, microphones, and eager journalists. Lights glared down on her as she stepped to a podium, heart pounding. Charles appeared in the audience, flanked by security. Ryan hovered near him, wearing a smug expression. But they couldn't stop the broadcast from going live. Serena inhaled. "Thank you for coming. I called this conference to reveal the truth behind the allegations against Jaden Cole. Contrary to popular belief, he was framed." She clicked a remote. On a giant screen, documents highlighted the transactions linking Jaden's ex-partner to Charles Callaway. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ryan stepped forward, sneering. "Lies. That's doctored evidence." Serena steadied her voice. "These records are genuine, verified by third parties. My father helped sabotage Jaden's former company, ensuring he took the blame for a crime he didn't commit." Pandemonium erupted. Reporters yelled questions. Charles's face twisted with fury. "Stop this nonsense immediately." But the cameras kept rolling. Serena lifted her chin. "I won't. Jaden Cole is innocent. And I won't allow my father to ruin another life." Charles barked at security to seize the projector, but it was too late. The story was out. The press devoured the scandal. On social media, #JadenColeInnocent trended within minutes. The doors at the back suddenly burst open, and a familiar figure strode in. Serena's breath caught. Jaden Cole stood there, a folder of papers in hand, gaze fierce. Gasps grew louder as he walked to the stage, ignoring Ryan's protests. Jaden stepped beside Serena, microphone in hand. He addressed the reporters, voice steady. "I have sworn affidavits and digital proof confirming that I was set up. Charles Callaway financed my ex-partner to destroy my reputation." He flicked through pages, handing them to stunned journalists. Camera flashes flared, capturing every word. Ryan looked ashen, inching backward. Charles's lips curled in rage, but he couldn't quell the surge of media uproar. Jaden turned to Serena, emotion shining in his eyes. "You risked everything to clear my name." She blinked back tears. "You didn't deserve the blame for something you never did." A cascade of questions rained down on them. Is your engagement real? Did Charles truly sabotage Cole's company? What happens next? Jaden took Serena's hand, lifting it as though in victory. The gesture set off a flurry of camera clicks. He leaned close to her ear, speaking low enough that only she could hear. "I'm sorry for leaving. I couldn't stand making you suffer." She squeezed his hand. "It's okay. You're here now." Their return overshadowed Charles's threats. The audience realized a new truth. The once maligned Jaden Cole was an underdog hero, and Serena Callaway had exposed her own father's corruption to stand by him. As the room exploded with voices, Jaden signaled for silence. Cameras swung back to him. He turned to Serena, expression solemn yet determined. Before the world tears the story apart, I want to clarify one thing. A hush settled. He reached into his jacket pocket, producing a small velvet box. Gasps rippled through the audience. Charles watched, eyes wide with fury. Ryan looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Jaden sank to one knee. Serena Calloway, our engagement began as a pretense, but somewhere along the line, it became real for me. You stood against your father, your own empire, just to defend me. I can't imagine a greater proof of loyalty or love. Tears glistened in Serena's eyes as she stared down at him, a swirl of emotion surging in her chest. He opened the box, revealing a modest diamond ring. I don't have the wealth your father has, but my devotion is real. Will you marry me for real this time? The press collectively held its breath. Serena felt her heart leap, recalling their first awkward handshake, their staged kisses, the fleeting tenderness that grew into something genuine. Yes, she whispered, voice trembling. I'll marry you. The ballroom erupted in deafening applause and frantic camera shutters. In the back, Charles stormed out, security trailing after him, while Ryan stood stunned. Hashtags lit up social media. Hashtag Serena says yes. Hashtag Jaden Cole redemption. Hashtag true love prevails. The entire spectacle became an instant viral sensation. Jaden slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood. They kissed, and the cameras immortalized the moment that shattered every doubt. In the weeks following the press conference, Charles found himself in legal jeopardy. Investigations into his corporate dealings intensified. Ryan Sterling, stripped of powerful allies, disappeared from the public eye. The media hailed Serena as a bold whistleblower who shattered her father's corruption from within. Jaden began rebuilding his business pursuits, freed from the stain of false accusations. Investors, drawn by the romance of his underdog story, supported his comeback. Serena, liberated from her father's shadow, chose to channel her resources into philanthropy. She funded programs to help small entrepreneurs, inspired by Jaden's resilience. Their simple wedding took place by a serene lakeshore. Ava served as maid of honor, her eyes brimming with happy tears. Jaden wore a tailored suit, exuding quiet confidence. Serena chose an elegant gown, her radiant smile reflecting genuine hope. Only close friends attended, no paparazzi, no flashy spectacles. During their vows, Jaden admitted his gratitude. I once believed I'd never trust again. You showed me that loyalty and love can thrive, even in a world dominated by greed. Serena squeezed his hands. You saved me from a life of obligation. I stand here choosing you, not because of a contract, but because of who you are. They sealed their vows with a tender kiss, applause echoing across the water. Charles was conspicuously absent, and Serena felt a pang of sadness. Yet she knew this was the path to her true freedom. The end.